guys? It's Landon Blake from taught-by-a-surveyor.org, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can do some really simple math in a programming language called visualbasic.net. That comes from Microsoft, and it's a little bit different than Python. So Python's what we call a dynamic language. It has what programmers call duck typing, which means if it acts like a duck, if it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck. Whereas visualbasic.net is what we call a statically typed programming language. And there's different advantages to both. I'm not going to get into it in this video, but basically in Visual Basic, you have to tell the computer what type of variable you're going to store. Where you don't have to do that on Python. In Python, you just say, here's the name of my variable and here's the value that I want to put in it, and Python figures out the rest for you. But Visual Basic, you have to be a little more careful. You got to be a little more specific when you're writing your code. And so I want to show you guys how to do that same math that we did in Python and Visual Basic, because it's going to teach you a little bit about how computers store numbers. And so this video is to kind of build on what we learned in the whiteboard talk about the different types of numbers. So I'm going to open a program called Visual Studio, and there's a free version on the web, and you can download it and install it. I will warn you, Visual Studio is kind of a big app to install, so you got to have a pretty decent computer to do that. So not everybody's going to want to do that. That's why I'm teaching you guys Python with Thonny, because Thonny's what we call a lightweight program, and it's super easy to use. Visual Studio's not a lightweight program; it's very heavy. But if you guys have if you got a desktop or a good laptop, you can install Visual Studio if it's okay with your parents, and you can try out this code. So this is a program in Visual Basic. It's what they call a console application, so it's working with the console or the shell, just like our thing in Python. And I've got a little program set up here, and so I want to let me explain what this code, and then we'll write another program that does some subtraction. This one does addition. So Visual Basic, we're keeping our code in what Visual Basic calls a module. So that's this module right here, start and end, and then it's called program. Okay, and this is just the default when you make a new program file in Visual Basic. And then right here this is called a little subroutine. That's like a function in Python. It just does something. We're in the main subroutine. Okay, don't worry about this part right here. Args is string. That's just if you want to get input from the user, you can. We're not doing that. Okay, and then right here I start declaring my variables just like we do in Python, but it's a little bit different. So what I have to do here is I have to tell it, so I'm telling it dim. Dim stands for dimension. Okay, so I'm telling it I need a variable with this name, my first number, and then you got to tell it what type of number you're going to store. So it needs to know, hey, what kind of value am I putting in this variable name, my first number? And so right here I'm telling it I want to store a double. My first number is going to be a double. Okay, and a double is a type of number. That's a floating point number, or a decimal number, like we talked about in the whiteboard talk. Okay, and I'm going to do some more videos that explain exactly what a floating point number is. But a double is a type of floating point number, a type of decimal number. Okay, then right here I say dim my second number, again, as a double. So this as a double, I got to tell the computer what type of number I'm storing. I say dim my third number as a double. Okay, so I've got 3 floating point numbers here. And then afterwards, I tell it, okay, now that you know what kind of variables I've got here, program, I want, in my first number, I want to store the value 15.2, and you can see it's a decimal number because we've got a digit after the decimal. I say I want to store 13.8 in my second number. And then right here, we're doing a little arithmetic operation like we did in Python. My third number equals my first number plus my second number. So this is where we're doing the math. It's got this plus operator just like Python does. Okay, then down here I'm saying, all right, now this is a little bit extra. This is something we didn't have to do in Python because Python's doing this for us magically. Okay, but in Visual Basic, you can't just print a number to the console. You have to convert the number to what's called a string or a text value. So now I'm making a variable. Okay, that's dim. I'm telling it make a variable of this type. What type? I'm telling it make me a string variable. Now string, that's just what programmers use. That's what they call text. So it's a string of characters. Okay, so I'm saying make a variable called my third number as text and make it a string. Okay, or make it text. Then right here, I say set the value of that variable we just created. My third number is text. Set that value to the result of calling this function toString on this little variable we made my third number. What that does is it takes the number value and makes it into a string. That's what this function toString does, or makes it into text. And then this last line, I'm saying, hey, write that text value that we just set here out to the shell or to the console. So I say console.writeLine. This is a function again. My third number's text is the value that I want to write out or I want to print. So this is like the print statement in Python. VisualBasic.net, it's called WriteLine. Console is the object that we're using that represents the shell. Okay, so let's just see what happens when we run this. So I'm going to save it, and then we're going to come over here. We're going to hit this button with the green triangle, the play button. That's going to run our script. Okay, and so here we go. And it pulls up the shell, and you can see right here, it's giving us the value, 29, that we asked for. Okay, and then we can close the window. All right, so that's a lot of code to do that little bit of math, but once you have it set up, now you just change these two numbers anytime you want, and it'll do the math for you. Okay, so but let's look at an example that does subtraction. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna delete these. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna create another variable just like we did in Python. Okay, so we're gonna say dim. And we're going to call this big number. Okay, and as, what is it? This time we're going to use an integer, as an integer. Okay, and then we're going to say dim little number as, and this time we're going to do an integer. So we're working with all integers now. Okay, so those are different than doubles. That means they're whole numbers. We can't have a decimal part now. And we're going to say dim result as integer. Okay, and then we're going to do the math right here. So we're going to say we got to set our values. So let's say, so when I set the values like this in Visual Basic, these are called the assignment statements. Okay, you don't have to do this in Python. So big number equals 122. Okay, we're going to say little number. You can see when I start typing it in, Visual Studio pulls it up for me. So I don't have to type the whole thing. Okay, and then we're going to say result. We're going to say equals, and we want to do our math. So we're going to say big number minus. We're going to use the minus operator, subtraction operator, minus little number. Okay. And then we're going to write that out to the console, but we need to make it text first. So we're going to say, we're going to make a new variable, dim result as text as string. Okay, so we need to tell it we got a string of characters. Okay, and then we're going to say result as text. We need to set the value. So see right here, we just created the variable and gave it the type. It's empty though, it doesn't have a value. We got to give it a value in the assignment statement. So we're going to say result as text. And we're going to say result toString. We want to use this function toString, okay, which converts the number value to a text value. Okay, and then down below, we're going to use the console object, and we're going to write that value out. So we're going to use the WriteLine function. And what are we writing out? So this function call right here doesn't have an argument, but the function to WriteLine wants to know what do you want to write out. So you got to give it the value to write out. That's called an argument to the function. So our argument is result as text. Okay. Now if we did this right, when we build and run the program, it's gonna output the result of 122 minus 8. Okay. So let's do that. Okay. So there's the value 114. Okay. So that's how you do this in Visual Basic. Okay, I like a little blank space right here. But that's basically it. So it's a little bit different than Python, but I wanted you guys to see how you have to declare the type of number that you're going to store in your variables. Now, Python can mix and match types of numbers, but Visual Basic does not like that. It will give you an error. So for example, let's just say we make this a double, big number a double, and we try and run this again, we should get an error. So let's try it. Nope, it worked. So Visual Basic is cooler than I thought. It actually allows you to mix and match those numbers. Okay, but you'll notice something. Let's do this math again. Because this is a double and this is an integer, it's messing up. See, it's losing this it's not doing the math properly, right? So you'll notice the result it's given us is just 114. Okay, so it's not giving us, it's not doing the math properly because we're mixing doubles and integers. Let's just try this. If we make the integer, the result, a double, let's see if it keeps the math correct on the right side of the decimal. I don't know yet. We're just experimenting. It does, yeah. So it's keeping the math here. Okay, so when this is an integer, when you're storing your result in an integer, it's losing anything to the right side of the decimal because it can only handle whole numbers. Okay. All right, guys. Hey, don't feel bad if you didn't follow this exactly. We're going to do lots more code, and I'll try and link to some resources that help you learn how to program. And we're not going to be working on the console very much longer. We're gonna learn how to write little GUI programs. So we're going to do that with tkinter and in Python, and we're going to use something called WPF, or Windows Presentation Framework, in Visual Basic. We're actually going to have a little graphical calculator, which will be cool, and I'll do those in some separate videos. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you check out our resources at taughtbysurveyor.org and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.